A friend of ours who is employed at Star City Games has recently moved in with Brad, and he told us, I always assumed Brad worked a lot on Magic, but I had no idea how much it was until I was around the guy in a day in, day out sort of way.
And it's all he does.
Yeah.
He'll be starting off with an Elvish Mystic, just like Andersen, as we are underway here in round number 10. Genesis Hydra the draw for Chris. He'll play a turn 2 Corsair of Crewfix. Top card's a Forest. Andersen will pass the turn back over to Nelson. Nelson will take a draw. Does have an island in hand. Manic Influence was the draw for the turn. Also has a copy of Rattleclaw Mystic in the grip. We'll see how he wants to move forward. You know, one thing I've noticed about Brad when we watch him play, never too quick to act, even though some of the lines may seem simple. He always is thinking things through quite a bit.
Well, you also, when you act fast in certain spots and act slow in others, you're often giving off information to perceptive opponents. When you think really hard when it's complicated, well, when you're not thinking, you're saying to your opponent, there's nothing for me to think about. There's no decision points in my hand right now.
Fleece main line to play for Nelson. Andersen going to sacrifice a Wooded Foothills here. Might be on the hunt for red mana.
Yeah, that was some awkwardness from Chris last turn. I think he wanted to hold the Wooded Foothills in his hand so that he would have a little bit more flexibility with the Corsair. But his play for this turn was Xenagos. So by doing that, it meant if there was a forest or a land that came into play tapped on top of his deck, he would not be able to cast the Xenagos this turn.
So my name is Ivan, as Steven said.
We'll see what the top card is here in just a moment for Andersen, as it looks like Xenagos is going to be on the way.
So please do not hesitate to ask.
And we'll see if a Satyr is going to join it or if the elevator will be going up.
Approximately 175 players.
Looks like a Satyr is on the way. The top card here for Andersen is Dragonlord Atarka, and that could be coming as soon as next turn.
Yeah, if there is, and not even, you don't even really need to get Nykthos into the equation here. Xenagos' plus power can get it done.
Yep. It's not hard for this deck to cast Dragonlord Atarka.
Right now, Xenagos' Dark Ritual. There's 3 lands. There's an elf. That's 7.
That does it.
Further away? Okay.
See what Nelson has for this turn.
Judges don't have sonar. They can't figure out where you
He'll play a Valorous Stance to take care of the Corsair. Fleece main line is going to go after the Xenagos. He's got a Satyr token that's going to chump block. There's an island and a passing in the turn. Nelson actually does have Disdainful Stroke at the ready, though it doesn't appear Andersen's able to cast the Dragonlord Atarka now this turn.
Please try your best to maintain a legal game state at all times. We'll be getting started in round 1 very shortly as soon as we figure out all of
So pretty good turn there from Nelson, all things considered. Valorous Stance taking down Corsair, pretty big deal.
Oh, especially since Chris ended up missing his ability to get a land off the Corsair. It did essentially nothing.
So go with Genesis Hydra for 3.
That it has 60 cards, at least in the main board.
Excuse me, it'll be for, oh no, it'll be for 3, excuse me. 4, pardon me, a little off this morning. Deathmist Raptor's going to join the party.
Thank you.
Yeah, 6 total mana, 4 lands, the elf, and then the plus on Xenagos.
I think the question now is if Brad wants to Disdainful Stroke this or not.
Yes.
And it looks like the answer is yes, he wants to counter that. Now, Deathmist Raptor can't be countered, obviously, because of Genesis Hydra's trigger. And what Brad is really trying to do is just kind of keep the mana as low as he can to stop Dragonlord Atarka from coming.
That's a really hard battle to fight, though, over the long term, especially with Brad not really applying that much pressure right now.
Fleece main line is nice and all, but it's going to need some help.
Well, if Brad has a 5th land, then he gets to basically kill Xenagos or the Deathmist Raptor for free, Chris's choice.
Yep. Well, back to Andersen we're going to go. You saw the 5th land. Fleece main line has gone monstrous. That took care of the Deathmist Raptor. Andersen right now, I believe the hand is just lands and Dragonlord Atarka. And Dragonlord Atarka actually being cast this turn is fine, but it's not really all that impressive.
Well, it is still an 8/8.
That is true.
It puts pressure on Brad to have another copy of Valorous Stance or a Den Protector to get back the Valorous Stance, or he's just going to die to the flyer. Yes, Dragonlord Atarka is, you know, it didn't blow up Brad's entire board because it's a monstrous Fleece main lion, but that doesn't mean it's good news.
Well, here is a morph, and it is a copy of Den Protector. And that can get back the Valorous Stance. Brad also did draw a copy of Disdainful Stroke for the turn, so if Chris has another big spell to cast, Brad has an answer. But I think it's pretty important right now for Brad to actually worry about the Xenagos that's on the battlefield. It's almost to its ultimate.
Yeah, and we have not seen that before. I don't think we've ever seen Xenagos go ultimate. One time?
I think maybe
one time?
twice. Maybe twice. It's very rare. Here's a Satyr token. Here comes Dragon Lord Tarka. Andersen going to have to take quite a bit of damage here. He's down to 11. Wooded Foothills pass a turn back. We'll see him unmorph the Den Protector on the end step up to take 1 to do so, given the mana confluence that's on the battlefield.
But this is a great setup here for Brad. He gets back the Valorous Stance to answer Dragon Lord Tarka. His Den Protector can't be blocked by either creature that Chris has left over. So Den Protector and Fleecemane Lion can go about threatening Xenagos, and Chris has nothing left over. And Brad has Disdainful Stroke to answer the next big play that Chris generates. At this point, it feels like Chris really needs something like Den Protector, but there's no Den Protectors in his main deck.
Yep. Let's see what Andersen does want to do here. Valorous Stance, Disdainful Stroke, Rattleclaw Mystic in hand. A couple avenues he can go. Temple's going to put the top card to the bottom. Here comes Den Protector towards Xenagos. Down to 2 counters. Don't have to really worry about the ultimate anymore.
Next turn, Brad can finish it off with Den Protector one way or the other.
Now I'll just pass the turn back with Valorous Stance at the ready. Elvish Mystic the draw here for Andersen. Not a great one right now.
It feels like it's a long time since we watched a game where Green Devotion, you see the problem of there's only so many cards that matter. The cards that matter got answered, and the rest of the deck is just mana.
Yep.
As the deck has moved more into the Death Mist Raptor style packages, it's become a little bit more redundant. It's become a little bit more threat dense. But we are kind of seeing an old school game here where Chris has had only a couple of cards that have mattered, Dragon Lord Tarka and Genesis Hydra. Those have been answered by counter spells and removal, and the leftovers just aren't that good.
As with any ramp strategy, and especially this green-red Devotion deck, you are at the mercy of your draws. No, you don't have any card drawing or, ponder or brainstorm-esque effects. So what you see is what you get. And he's looking just for payoff cards now. No more acceleration here. That's what Andersen's hoping for. And he's going to need multiple payoffs because Andersen does have a Disdainful Stroke in hand.
Yeah.
Den Protector will take care of Xenagos for good. Let's see what Andersen's follow-up is. Going to morph a copy of Rattleclaw Mystic this go-around. Pass the turn back. Does get to play a little bit of a morph sub-game in his deck. It's not always going to beat Den Protector. It can't beat Death Mist Raptor, as that's what Andersen drew, and he's morphing that. Andersen does have another Death Mist Raptor in his graveyard, so it was a timely draw. Wooded Foothills and pass the turn back.
Facing down against Disdainful Stroke, that was perhaps the best draw Chris has.
Perhaps, yeah.
It completely stops Brad from attacking at this point. I suppose Fleecemane Lion is still eligible to attack, but it feels like Fleecemane Lion has more important defensive duties right now, given Chris's board and the life totals of the 2 players.
There's 2 mana. Gonna unmorph Rattleclaw Mystical Andersen, so he'll get a little surge in mana here. This is gonna allow him to play Dragon Lord Ojutai, and this is a real weakness for Andersen's deck. That may have been Brad's best draw.
Yeah, at this point, Brad was still doing okay, it felt like, but Death Mist Raptor is a very threatening card. It puts a lot of power on play on Chris's side. Brad's at 10, and Chris has more creatures in play than Brad does. So Brad was starting to get at risk of Chris just attack you, untap, attack you again, and that sequence maybe being good enough to win the game. Now Dragon Lord Ojutai represents another significant blocker, and if Brad is able to defend himself well, it represents a really significant attacker.
Andersen going to search up a land here with his Wooded Foothills. He'll get a Forest. Looks like he's only going to activate 1 of those as he goes down to 19. Does have another copy in play. Perhaps trying to save that in case he draws a copy of Courser of Crufix. For a little bit of manipulation. He'll be unmorphing Death Mist Raptor. He'll get a counter. And I like this play here from Chris of taking the other Death Mist Raptor back and bringing it back morphed.
Yeah, he's in no rush right now. It's not like the game's going to be decided in the next turn or 2.
Yep.
So with Chris having nothing else to do with his mana, he might as well extract a little bit more value out of his Death Mist Raptor.
He'll untap and take a draw step. A card like Genesis Hydra would be big here for Chris. He'll start by sacrificing Wooded Foothills. go a little bit lower. There's a basic forest.
And if he's sacking the foothills, that means that he must have drawn one of his big ones.
Yeah, it may have been a Hydra. Yeah, and it was.
And if this is a Hydra for 7, that means Dragon Lord Tarka and Hornet Queen are both eligible. And either one of those cards swings the game around pretty quickly.
Well, he's hoping. Nope. Pelucranos and Whisperwood Elemental seem to be the best of the bunch here.
Pelucranos is not a bad consolation prize. He does have enough mana left over next turn to shoot down Dragon Lord Tarka, but I think Chris's plan right now is just to go wide, flood the board with creatures and win the game that way, and to that end, he's taking Whisperwood Elemental.
And that's not a bad spot to be in at this point.
Round 1. You have 50 minutes. Please begin.
We'll see if Brad does want to counter the Genesis Hydra or not. As it appears, he does have Disdainful Stroke in hand and has had it for some time. Genesis Hydra may have been Chris's best draw. So here is a stroke. Whisperwood Elemental is on the battlefield, however. That can't be stopped. And it'll be bringing a Manifest along with it. We'll head back Nelson's way. We'll take a draw step here. Let's see what the follow play is for Brad. Tapping mana pretty quickly. Copy of Courser. Top card. Ajani Steadfast. That'll change some things.
Yes.
A combo with Dragonlord Ojutai is Ajani Steadfast if it does get onto the battlefield. The +1, quite good. And actually, I mean, the -2 is certainly good as well, but the +1 in combination with Dragonlord Ojutai is basically a lock.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to break out of.
Vigilance and Lifelink are about the best keywords you can put on Dragon Lord Ojutai.
Yeah. Windswept Teeth going into the battlefield because of the Courser. Trigger. Gain a little life will Nelson. Disdainful Stroke on top of the deck. Nelson up to 11. Andersen down to 14. Looks like Brad may sacrifice the Windswept Teeth here. And he will. He'll stay at the same life total because Courser's on the battlefield. Gonna shuffle away the Disdainful Stroke, search of a basic Plains. 2 copies of Ajani Steadfast in the main deck here this weekend for Brad.
Ajani Steadfast also a combo with Death Misraptor and Den Protector.
Indeed.
A lot of good targets in this deck.
It's a Planeswalker I think we have kind of forgotten about as a community. It is quite the card, and now it's on the battlefield. It's gonna go down, which means it's gonna pump up everybody. Chris gonna take a look at it. What's that minus ability? Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control.
Also a combo with Den Protector.
Just built for Den Protector.
Combos inside of combos inside of combos.
Indeed. So now we're gonna head back Anderson's way. And if you've played with the Johnnies before, you know, putting +1/+1 counters on everything may not seem like much, but it is quite a bit.
Well, when we're getting to a spot here where Chris is trying to assemble an Alpha Strike to apply pressure to Brad without dying on the way back, it's pretty much perfect. Helps a lot with the blocking and also allows Brad to keep his board intact and then threaten lethal on the way back.
Well, Brad might have some interest in an Alpha Strike soon.
Yeah.
His creatures are also big.
Or Brad can simply plus Ajani on Dragon Lord Ojutai, sit back on defense and wait.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's going to be Brad gaining 7 and anticipating every turn and leaving Dragon Lord Ojutai back on defense to block something. That is tough to get through.
To say the least. Chris plays a Temple of Abandon, deciding on the scry at this point. Now, the one thing you have to be a little scared of if you're Brad, and we'll see how aggressive he wants to get with Ajani and Dragon Lord Ojutai, is if one of the manifests ends up being Dragon Lord Tarka.
Yeah, that's bad news. I don't know how much he can really concede to that. He's already seen 2 copies of Dragon Lord Tarka this game, and He is sort of incentivized to get the game over with as fast as possible because Chris has some very dangerous draws lurking in his deck.
Chris is turning them sideways here. Turning many of them sideways. Maybe a little unexpected.
Well, the real question here is what is going on with those Satyr tokens getting involved in combat?
Yeah.
You want to get Death Disruptor to combat? All right, it's got Death Edge. You want to get your Morph and your Manifest into combat? Okay, that could be whatever. Who knows?
Now, Chris is going after a Johnny. He wants to try to get this thing off the battlefield.
Well, what's so bizarre about this is he's got, I suppose he has 5 attackers against 4 blockers. So he does get a Johnny off the table this way. But he's allowing Brad to make some really juicy blocks, assuming those morphs aren't really up to anything.
The Manifest was just a copy of Elvish Mystic. The morph is something that Nelson knows. It's a Deathness Raptor.
Yeah.
Whisperwood Elemental will manifest, and we're going to head back Nelson's way. It was very important for Andersen to get a Johnny Steadfast off the battlefield. He accomplished that. But now he's got to contend with Dragonlord Ojutai. Flooded Strand is the draw. Take a look at the top card. It's another copy of Dragonlord Ojutai. Nelson at 10, Andersen at 14. Nelson looking to kind of climb back into this one. He's done a nice job of stabilizing. Now he's trying to finish it off.
I mean, Brad's pretty close to being able to attack with more than just Dragonlord Ojutai.
Yep.
I think both Den Protector and Fleece Mainline are reasonable attackers this turn.
Well, he's coming with Den Protector, it looks like, and Dragonlord Ojutai. Den Protector right now cannot be blocked.
Well, Whisperwood Elemental
I suppose
could block,
Whisperwood could block,
but
yep.
if they want to make that trade, Brad's happy with that. That's
Yeah.
fine.
There's 4 power Den Protector at this point.
You know, there's always the fear of what is down there from the Manifest token, but I don't think Brad can really afford to play around that very much.
It's so likely that it's just nothing.
And also, how long are you going to wait? Are you just never going to make an attack?
Yeah.
You got to, at some point, roll the dice a little bit. It's not like it's the end of the world if it happens to be something of note down there, and he doesn't want to give Chris a lot of time because he's got draw steps. He had a Whisperwood Elemental in play, so you got to risk a little bit.
And Brad's also not sitting on the safety net anymore of Disdainful Stroke.
Right. When Brad's sitting on cards like Disdainful Stroke and Valorous Stance, he can afford to be a little bit more conservative with his attacks, but, you know, his shields are down, and he needs to connect with Dragonlord Ojutai to find more reaction to Chris's good draw steps or to just try to close out the game as soon as possible. Not a good anticipate here.
It must not have been, because he's certainly thinking about it.
He's thumbing a redundant copy of Dragonlord Ojutai and Elvish Mystic.
Nice.
That's the decision point here.
I believe he took Ojutai, which is kind of interesting. You see the top card's Dromoka's Command now, because he could just replay Ojutai to have an untapped one on the battlefield. I don't know if that gets him anywhere, because having that one on the battlefield that has a counter might be a little bit more useful.
Well, you know, these decks typically don't kill things. These Green Devotion decks, at least game 1. Brad, I think, took the Elvish Mystic because he's got a draw step, and he draws a card off the Dragonlord Ojutai, and the mana may come up. He's got Den Protector in his deck. That's pretty mana intensive, some other stuff too.
Chris reaching for a bunch of mana here. You saw him unmorph Whisperwood Elemental. That was the Manifest. And now he's reaching for a lot of mana. Is this Dragonlord's Harka? It is.
Ooh.
Kill your Dragonlord Ojutai. That's a big top deck there for
Wow.
Andersen.
I mean, I believe that's the last copy of Dragonlord Ojutai in the deck too. The timing's perfect, and Brad's up against it now. He almost needs Den Protector for Valorous Stance or Valorous Stance, like, right now.
Yep. That's why he might be sacrificing this Flooded Strand here. I mean, Dromoka's Command is oftentimes quite good, but it's not good right now.
Leading up to the turn, it looked like Dromoka's Command was going to be, you know, the last piece of the puzzle for Brad.
Yep. Now he's on the hunt for Den Protector or Valorous Stance, as you mentioned.
And for the third time, this weekend, we are seeing someone run out of fetch lands to get in their standard deck.
Nice. Johnny Steadfast is the draw. What's next? Courser of Crewfix. This game has swung back and forth.
Yep. It was looking so good for Brad. And you can see this is why Brad needed to get aggressive and risky in a couple of those spots.
Yep.
One draw step from Chris undoes everything.
Yeah, and that one draw step was Dragon Tarkin. It's going to get the job done. Chris Andersen's going to win game number 1 here over Brad Nelson. A very timely Dragon Tarka helps him steal that one. Green-Red Devotion up a game here over Matt Megamorph.
That was an incredible comeback there from Chris.
Yep.
And that's part of the reason that I thought his matchup here was pretty solid, at least game 1. Brad only has so much defense, and Chris has got a lot of awesome draw steps that require those few defensive cards.
To the sideboards we will go, and we will start with Nelson and his additional copy of Disdainful Stroke. He's got 3 in the main, 1 on the board. You can expect that to come in. Another copy of Tremoka's Command, another Valor Stance. 3 Master of the Unseen, 2 Plummet, 2 Glare of Heresy, 3 Hornet Nest, and then 2 Elspeth Sun's Champion.
Definitely want the additional copy of Disdainful Stroke. Definitely want the other copy of Valorous Stance. I think Elspeth and the Tremoka's Command are also reasonable cards to bring in here.
On Chris's side, what do we see?
2 Hornet Nest, 2 Roast, a Barrage of Boulders, 2 Nissa Worldwaker, and Ugin the Spirit Dragon, 3 Den Protector, 4 Plummet. Definitely like Den Protector in this matchup because Brad's trying to play a pretty long game, and with cards like Disdainful Stroke and Valorous Stance, so Den Protector slots in very nicely there. I think Ugin is a fine way to top off this curve here. Again, the game's going to go on for a very long time, and it demands Valorous Stance from Brad's side of the table. I don't know how many copies of Plummet he wants. I feel like you don't want 4 because there's only Dragon Lord Ojutai in Brad's deck, but 1 or 2 coming in I think is a reasonable measure. And I think the Roast and the Hornet Nest may or may not come in.
A lot of options.
Yeah, a lot of good options. I think Roast should come in. Brad's got a lot of ground creatures to answer that way. Hornet Nest I'm not as interested in because I think Brad's plan might ultimately be to go to Dragon Lord Ojutai and try to gum up the ground and prevent Chris from getting much of anything going, but the Nest may come in.
Well, these players will shuffle up and get ready for game number 2. We will talk about the Star City Games YouTube page. A lot of awesome stuff on there. You can certainly rewatch the replays of this tournament. When we do chop them up and put them live, you can go to youtube.com/Star City Games, find our Versus series, our premium archives, as I mentioned, open series archives, and then content exclusive to our YouTube page like the unboxings. You'll find Evan Irwin, Brian Brondoon, Chris Van Meter, and a bevy of other people taking part in those as well. It's pretty great stuff. youtube.com/Star City Games for more information. Subscribe now. And the best part?
Totally free.
Totally free.
By subscribing, you get updates for when the YouTube page gets updated, and content's rolling over there all the time.
Yep. Completely free. You have no excuse. youtube.com/Star City Games. Do want to give a little shout out right now. Something we don't do all the time. A little fun fact about Brad Nelson. Every time he has a feature match, he calls his grandmother to let her know.
Hi, Brad's grandmother.
Hi, Brad's
Thanks
grandmother.
for joining us this morning.
I'm sorry Brad lost game 1.
Yeah. You have a very sweet grandson.
That youngster Chris Andersen with that great top deck.
Yeah.
He's a real meanie head.
No good, Nick.
I do think on the whole, this is probably a favorable matchup for Chris. That game certainly went back and forth on both sides. I mean, it was the perfect time to draw Dragon Lord Tarka, but I do think that he's favored in the matchup.
I think so too. Brad had a lot of good things going there. You know, he had a Fleece main that was monstrous that locked up the Deathless Raptor portion of Chris's deck. Valor Stance, Disdainful Stroke, and Den Protector Get It Back all showed up. Ajani showed up at a very good time. He had an uncontested Dragon Lord Ojutai attacking, but that shows you the power of Green Devotion, that a couple good draw steps from Chris, and Brad was completely overwhelmed. The game went from Brad is in the driver's seat to Brad is conceding in about the span of 2 turns.
Well, Nelson going to start things off here with the Temple of Plenty. We'll head back Andersen's way. A Temple of Abandon. That top card going to stay on top. Pass the turn back over to Nelson. Nelson with the Windswept Teeth. Already has a copy of Disdainful Stroke in hand. It's unclear if he has blue mana yet at this point. But we do know that he has white and green. Might have a Fleece main line on the way, a little mana acceleration, but he'll go with the Fleece main line. To Andersen we go. Nykthos the draw. Didn't have that last game. Nykthos the second land. Here's the Sylvan Caryatid. He'll pass it back over to Nelson. Nelson draws a copy of Dragonlord Ojutai for the turn. Does have a copy of Myakos in hand, so blue mana not going to be an issue.
Really good opening here for Chris. The sooner that he's threatening a boatload of mana, the sooner Brad has to stop developing his board and leave up Disdainful Stroke.
Yep. Temple of Plenty, the land that enters the battlefield.
And if we learned anything from last game, it's that Brad needs to get a move on here in this matchup. He needs to be attacking early on in the game because, yes, he can hold off Chris for a little while, but not forever.
Yeah. Well, Fleeceman Line's a good start.
Yeah, this opening for Brad is great. A couple copies of Fleeceman Line backed up by blue mana, a Ajani, and a Disdainful Stroke.
Chris will play a Caryatid. An Elvish Mystic pass the turn back. He's building up. There's the Yavimaya Coast. Might be time for a Johnny Steadfast here. And it is. Gonna make those Fleeceman Lines into 4/4s. Time to get into the red zone. Pretty good turn here for Brad.
Yep, he has the shields down here for one turn.
Yep.
Chris needs something awesome. And if he doesn't, Chris is gonna have to start chump blocking soon. And once he starts chump blocking with his mana creatures, it's very hard for him to catch up.
Dragonlord Otarka was the draw, but we're a little ways away from that.
Brad is essentially threatening lethal next turn because he can minus the Ajani again, and then he's got two 5/5s with Chris at 9 rather.
Might be time to start chumping soon. Chris gonna do a little math on this turn, see exactly how much he can do.
This would also be a great spot for roast.
Sure.
If Chris could just slow this down a little bit.
We'll start with an Elvish Mystic. Here's a Nykthos activation for 4 mana. Looks like now 5. Here's Xenagos, 1 floating. Make a Satyr token. Gonna get rid of a Johnny. Pass the turn back. Andersen feeling as though it's very important to get a Johnny off the battlefield there.
Well, it means he's not facing down lethal just yet. Now, with a land, Brett is threatening lethal because now he's representing 9 power in play.
What's interesting here, because Brad would be representing 9 power and would be representing lethal, is if he's supposed to go after Chris with a lethal attack or go after Xenagos, because Chris has a blocker. And Xenagos is going to go wild next turn in combination with Nykthos.
Yep.
So even if he does play a land, I'm not even sure who he's supposed to attack. If it's Andersen for lethal or Xenagos for lethal. He might have to slow down just a touch here. And say, I need to get Xenagos off the table because of what it can do.
The other thing he can do is split his attackers, assuming that Chris will not block the one attacking him, play land Dragonlord Ojutai, and hope that that's good.
Sure.
With Chris falling to 5.
Well, he decided he had to get Xenagos off the battlefield. That did work. Andersen draws a copy of Rattleclaw Mystic. Otarka in hand here for Andersen. That's kind of the payoff at this point, but Nelson does have a copy of Disdainful Stroke in hand.
Yeah, Chris exactly 7 mana right now.
There's an Elvish Mystic, kind of a freebie with Nykthos on the battlefield. Nykthos with Devotion to Green, 5 mana it can make. So here is 5, 6, and 7. Shrug the shoulders, cast a Dragonlord Otarka, and promise you that's not resolving. Disdainful Stroke will take care of that, and also have to take 1 because of the Yavimaya Coast, but it's very important he did not let that resolve. Let's see what's next here for Andersen, if anything. That Elvish Mystic just entered the battlefield, so he can't tap it for mana. So Nelson going to sacrifice Windswept Heath. He'll get a basic forest.
Chris has left over here another copy of Dragonlord Otarka and some mana. couple copies of Rattle Claw Mystic.
Not bad leftovers. Nelson will untap. He'll take a draw. Here come the Fleece Mane Lions. Satyr token will block.
Chris again forced to block here with Brad representing lethal.
What's the follow-up here for Nelson? Dent Protector appears to be an option. He's going to play Yavimaya. He's going to go to the skies. Dragon Lord Ojutai. He's hoping that Andersen doesn't have much left. Because really, that's all that he can do. But you see the hand. There is a copy of Dragon Lord Atarka in Andersen's hand.
The benefit here for Chris is if Dragon Lord Atarka is Chris's payoff card at the spot, which is what it appears to be, he's still drawing a Valorous stance. He's gotten Chris down to 5. If he can knock out Dragon Lord Atarka, Dragon Lord Ojutai flies in for the win. Chris currently has no way to gain life and no plummet in hand.
Here's Xenagos to start. That elevator's going up. That's 5. I was doing some Nykthos math. It is just kind of one big math equation at times.
Right. Xenagos is plus mana this turn in several respects. One is it's 4 mana turning into 5 because there's 5 creatures in play, and it's another green mana symbol in play for Nykthos. So he's actually generating mana right now by casting Xenagos.
He might be able to play Rattleclaw Mystic and still generate mana because, again, of Nykthos. It might just be a free Rattleclaw Mystic.
Right. Once you have Xenagos in play alongside Nykthos, then your 2 mana creatures are free because you get 1 mana back from a green mana symbol, and you get 1 mana back from Xenagos' plus power.
And here is the math equation. So Xenagos did take up for 5. Rattleclaw Mystic brings him down to 3. Nykthos, Ocean are going to bring up to a lot. You see Brad wants to make sure that he has the appropriate amount of mana now to catch Dragon Lord Atarka. That'll take care of a Fleece Mane Lion. Nelson going to quickly untap and draw. Does he have a Valorous stance?
Now the upshot here, another saving grace here for Brad is it's going to probably be a little bit before Chris can start attacking because Brad's got the ground pretty well locked up, and Dragon Lord Atarka right now is on defense handling Dragon Lord Ojutai. So he's got a lot of draw steps to Valorous stance.
Well now, if you're Brad, you have to hope he doesn't draw anything too big. Genesis Hydra, Pelucanos, those certainly come to mind.
Plummet. Plummet is really bad news.
Yep.
If he's got a card like Arbor Colossus in the sideboard, those are the cards you need to dodge right now.
Xenagos is going up. There's a Morph for Andersen. Pass the turn back over to Nelson. Nelson will take a draw. He's got big draws available too. Valorous stance, the best of the bunch. Sustainful strokes, no slouch, but Andersen is again working his way towards that Xenagos ultimate. That does get a little bit scary here. Deathmish Raptor. All right. Fleece Mane Lions too. I'd get behind this. He can start chipping away a little bit.
It's a pretty gutsy attack. Remember that counter that's on the Fleece Mane line right now, it is not a monster's counter. It is a counter from a Ajani several turns back.
Sure.
Which means he's offering up. He cannot save both Fleece Mane Lions, assuming Chris puts sufficient power in front.
And he's setting everything at Chris. Doesn't care about Xenagos.
I suppose at the end of the day, Chris doesn't have a whole lot of power in play, besides Dragon Lord Atarka.
Yeah, that's the thing. Double blocking there feels a touch risky.
Well, he's got, I think the easiest block that I can see is probably, you put 4 points of power in front of the 3/3 Fleece Mane Lion. You put Dragon Lord and Tarka in front of the 4/4 Fleecemane Lion, and you chump block the Death Mist Raptor with something.
Force his hand here a little bit.
He makes one of the Fleecemane Lions monstrous. One of the other one dies. You lose some stuff, but your stuff isn't really that valuable right now because you have more than enough mana to operate with. You don't really want to be trading with Death Mist Raptor because in the event that Brad does some morph, you don't want him to get it back for free. So that seems like the one to chump block. And Chris, I think, is making the same blocks.
Well, we'll see which Fleecemane Lion Brad wants to activate here. It'll be that one. Those creatures will bite the dust. We'll have some exchanges in combat here. Caryatid will leave as well. So Brad has knocked a few things down. He passes the turn back to Andersen. See what Andersen's draw is, if we can get a good look at it. Keep in mind, at this point in the game, Andersen has drawn 2 lands. So it's likely that he will draw lands. You would think.
One would assume.
One would assume that he will start drawing some lands. Of course, he's got some big draws available. He's also got some pretty bad ones, too. Xenagos is going to take up. He drew a copy of Barrage of Boulders, and all he can do is pass the turn back. So Nelson's going to draw a card. Still looking for Valor's Stance. Barrage of Boulders, it's not quite time for you. Here comes Death Mist Raptor. Caryatid will block. There's a forest, pass the turn back. It's time for -6. Exile the top 7 cards of your library. You put a number of creatures and or lands onto the battlefield.
Not great.
So this is, truth be told, this is actually kind of expected, right? Like,
yeah.
It doesn't surprise you that he's going to hit a lot of lands here. Now, the Genesis Hydras are rather comical.
Well, hold on. Now the Genesis Hydras are really funny, but what's really significant here is that he's found Rugged Highlands. That puts him to 6.
Okay.
And now Dragon Lord and Tarka may be able to attack.
Sure.
It's risky, right? Because there's a lot of things that could potentially kill you.
Definitely
Johnny,
risky.
Dramoka's command.
Yep.
For, there's some draws, but if Chris doesn't feel like he can really hang on to this game for very much longer, going to 6 might be the excuse he needs to attack with Dragon Lord and Tarka.
Hope he remembers that trigger. Oh, yes, we're feeling it.
Yes.
Yeah, he's coming in. Because it's a 2-turn clock here for him. So now Brad's going to draw. He drew a forest.
He's got Barrage of Boulders in hand, too. So even if Brad has some way to block next turn, that doesn't matter from Chris's perspective. That Rugged Highlands is hilarious. That is just perfect here.
I think Brad has to attack now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not winning by blocking.
Yep. 3 looks at it. Death Mist Raptor, Den Protector, and a land. Take a look at the graveyard. Not going to really like what you see. Look at the hand. Yep, all you got to do is look, shrug, and extend the hand.
Wow.
Chris Andersen going to win this match here over Brad Nelson, 2-0. Rugged Highlands, hey you.
That is I mean, if you need a definition of an every life point matters sort of game, there it is. You wouldn't necessarily anticipate that this matchup is where you would see something like that. That Xenagos, it felt like it whiffed, but going from 5 to 6 gave Chris the incentive he needed to be able to start attacking with Dragon Lord Tarka. There was some risk there. Could have easily died on the way back. If Brad finds something like Valorous Stance off of the Ojutai, Chris is probably dead. But Brad just found some creatures, and Chris is able to come back for lethal next turn.
Very well done. Chris Andersen going to win this match. She is 10-0 now in this tournament. He is still our lone undefeated player, beating Brad Nelson 2-0. Those games were quite close.
Yes.
Very, very back and forth.